Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the JBDC's The Entrepreneur's Journey. It's Friday afternoon in our usual slot, lunchtime. I hope you have your lunch with you or you have a little snack to take you through for the next hour as we have another lovely, interesting conversation with another budding entrepreneurial icon in Jamaica. This afternoon, I'm going to have a young woman who is an early stage entrepreneur and she has an interesting story to share with us. Her name is JoAnn Elaine Morris, and she is founder and co-owner of Rachel Lane. And she has an interesting and eclectic background, I think. Her business is focused on creating wonderful aromatherapy type products, mixing scents, colors, and textures, body butters and creams, and that kind of gooey nice stuff. But Miss Morris is the holder of a Bachelor of Arts in Architectural Studies from the University of Technology, and she has worked in that field for some time, working with one of the more renowned companies that she worked with was the airport, the Norman Manley International Airport, for around 6 years before life threw a wrench, as they would say, and what turned out to be, or what started as a joke, turned out to be okay. Maybe this is gonna be the real deal. I want to give JoAnn the opportunity to tell how that story unfolds. So do help me welcome with a warm, warm internet virtual applause, JoAnn Morris. Welcome, JoAnn.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh,
Yeah, so as you said, it really was just like maybe we can do this because my mother had been experimenting with soaps for a little bit, probably a couple months at the time, and we started to give the soaps to friends and family, and we were getting really good feedback. And then I got, I randomly was online and I bought candle wax, like a wax kit. And so I love candles, I love anything scented. So I started experimenting with blending scents. And I was like, maybe we could actually do this. But she works, I was working at the time. So it didn't really go anywhere. And then in 2019, I was about to be made redundant. And I was like, well, I can always send out applications to do the same thing I've been doing for the past 6 years, or I could do something I've never done before and run my own business. And it was a strange moment because I was seeing a lot of job offers for the same position that I was leaving at the airport. So I really had an internal battle between, should I really take this on or should I just go the safe route and do what I've been doing? And I decided for once to not play it safe, and Rachel Lane is what it is.
wow. I am very interested in getting a little bit behind that struggle you had, that internal struggle, because being made redundant is a scary thing for most people. And it's natural to want to reach for something that feels solid and feels safe and secure. So it's interesting that you're saying that you actually saw job opportunities.
It was, yeah.
Can you give us what it is that made you just choose to leave safety, because there was still the opportunity to go towards safety? What made you take that step? Because I think it's a rather bold one to make, especially for a young person.
So naturally, I like to have a plan. I kind of like to know, what's going to happen. So that's my personality, right? When I was going to lose my job, well, before that, around the 3 year mark when I was working, I was thinking, I want to kind of push myself a little bit. So I was going to apply for similar positions, and I wasn't really seeing anything, right? I don't really see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of job offers in my field. So when I was going to lose my job and I started to, check the papers and I'm seeing these offers back to back and I'm like, could this be the sign that I should just apply to one of these things? And, I really looked at it myself. I said, I don't want to reach 60 and be like, I wonder what would have happened if I took that step. Another thing that made me really take the step is that I've always kind of wanted to have a family business. I'm not from a family that, has businesses. And a lot of my family has a lot of strong women, and a lot of them, they're in one job for 30 years and they're really good at that job and they're really dedicated. But for me personally, I wanted to start something that my family could call our own, especially for, my parents. And so that was the real push. And I was also like reading online, about people who they start their own companies for whatever reason. And one person said you can always apply for a job. Like if it doesn't work out, you can always just apply for
Mm-hmm.
another job. And so at that point, I was like, why am I stressing out myself trying to decide if I should stay safe and apply for what I've been doing for the past 6 years, or if I should try to do something new? If it doesn't work, I can just always do something else. So I think that was really
Just
the push.
okay. So you just decided to take a gamble, to make that
Yeah, I
risk, take that
decided to
bet on
go
yourself.
against, right,
The grand. That's super awesome. I mean, especially you establishing that it's not like you had anybody. If you would be like the first to
right.
trailblaze in this entrepreneurial pursuit. Respect to you for having the courage to do that, and at that, at a young age to make that decision, and after spending so much time and getting your qualifications, because you're an architect, yes.
Yeah, I was a junior architect at the airport. And that, I mean, having my degree and having the experience was also another thing. I was just like, if it doesn't work really and truly, you
You
have
have
something
something
that
to
you
fall
can
back
fall back
on.
on.
So the education was that. So all right then. You have a trained profession, and it's a profession that a lot of people actually venture off to establish their own business in, their own firm in. So tell us about what exactly, describe in your own words, what is Rachel Lane and what it's offering. And after you've done that, tell us how come you chose to go in that business.
All right. So Rachel Lane manufactures and sells Jamaican handmade home fragrance, so candles, room sprays, that sort of thing, as well as body care. So soaps, scrubs, body washes, anything to do with body care. Um, the thinking behind forming Rachel Lane was I didn't just want to do, I have a design degree essentially. That's what my degree is, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't just want to form a soap and candle company. So the thinking behind Rachel Lane is a Jamaican brand that we can offer to the world. So it's from Jamaica for the world, right? And I was also very focused, or I'm very focused on establishing Rachel Lane as something that is a treat to yourself. Um, I have many nights where I'm taking long showers with candles. And so I believe that just the same way that you'd want to gift friends and family, I feel like we should slow down sometimes and take care of ourselves. And so now, um, Rachel Lane is transitioning into more of like a wellness and lifestyle brand as opposed to just the products itself.
Uh,
Um, and how did I get into this? Um,
yes, yes,
Coming from architecture, right? So
yeah.
I have always used my hands, right? I can't draw. Let me just say that from now. But I used to cut up like shirts and jeans. There was a point in time when everything I had was like ripped. And when I went natural, like 12 years ago, I started making my own twist out cream and making own gel and that sort of thing. And my mother is also very creative. Like I am a drop. compared to how creative she is. She paints, she writes, she does all of these things. So I grew up seeing her being very creative. My dad was very good with his hands. He was a mechanic. So I was kind of surrounded by people always using their hands. So when my mother started to experiment with soap making, as I said, she's always experimenting with something. But I could kind of see that she was, deep in the soap making. Like she would try a recipe, it would fail, we would go back at it again. She would give me the stuff to try. And as I said, I love anything that is scented and I love candles, right? So I initially wanted all of our candle blends to be, blended by perfumists and all of these things. And then the reality of like minimum quantities and all those things that I had never heard of hit me. And I decided to try to blend, myself. And
Mm-hmm.
it went well. So I was like, as I said, I jokingly said to her one day, probably we could do this. And when life hit me, I was like, we need to do this. Like it moved from we can do this to we need to do it.
Wow. So there's a little bit of innate, about inherited streak of, practical hands-on things in the genes going on, and then that love, so that personal interest that drove you down this path towards um, Rachel Lynn. And guys, may I tell you, you really need to check out this brand. Not just saying so. She has described it as a self-care and wellness and that kind of thing, and it really is. And even the packaging, you didn't talk about that. You look at the packaging, it actually speaks to, a treat. It says, luxury. I get that when I look at it because I was looking at some of the
So
products yesterday.
right. So when I was, after we got through the whole inception phase, we came to you guys. We went to JBDC and just to get some information because at the time I wasn't really sure like what I needed to do and all of that. So came to you guys, the first thing you guys were like, you need to register, you need to register. So I registered, got that out of the way. And I saw an ad, I think on Instagram, JBDC was having a design fusion. And
Mhm,
I said to my mother, I say, you think I can apply for this? She was like, I don't know. So I was like, I'm gonna apply for this. I had reached a point in life where, and I am at that point now where I'm just trying to try things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you move on, right? So
mhm,
I applied for the design fusion, and when I was applying, most of the questions, my answers were no. Have you made any sales? No. What is your current client base? None.
mhm,
And so I just applied out of applying sakes, and luckily I got in and I was probably one of like I think I was the only person doing body care and candles, and I was probably one of five people who were doing craft. Most of the other people were fashion based. And while we were in design fusion, the aim of design fusion is to take you from concept to product. So at the time, I knew that we were going to do certain products, but I didn't have like the branding done and anything like that. And because I knew I had a deadline of December to come with a finished product, it kind of forced me to buckle down and to focus because I can get distracted very easily. I am a dreamer, so I will see things and go off. So that kind of forced me to stick to developing the products. So when it came to like labeling, I knew I wanted something that would stand out on a shelf, be sleek, speak to luxury, but I realized that a lot of brands that once they go into the modern space, the branding becomes very black and white, very lacking of color, and that is not who I am. And as somebody from the Caribbean, I identify with fruit trees and my backyard of whole for fruit tree, ackee tree, mango tree. So I wanted the brand to embody a Caribbean kind of spirit so that when the brand goes internationally, it won't just blend in and dissolve into, these black and white or gray monochrome kind of brands. So a lot of thoughts and time went into how the product will look. As I said, I want when you take up a Rachel Lane soap, you feel like, oh my gosh, you feel a treat to yourself. So a lot of thoughts and time, as I said, went into
mhm.
the packaging and the branding. And I mean, and I guess people starting their own businesses would know this or should know this. Nothing will ever be perfect the first time round. So it's not where I want it to be. I have things in mind, but I think it's a good starting point.
Okay. And we did say that your business is a fairly young business. It's just going on 2 years old
Approaching
now.
2 years, yeah.
Right. So we do want to stay with what it's like at this stage of the journey because, on this program, we've done quite a few entrepreneurial stories, and for the most part, are usually, either further along in the journey or maybe midpoint. So I want you to tell us, now that you are basically, it's still very fresh for you as a startup, as you started, what were the biggest, what has been the biggest challenge for you becoming an entrepreneur? Because it is a process.
So well, one of the challenges that I did not foresee was shifting my mindset from working in an organization to running a business, right? I went to the airport straight out of college. As a matter of fact, I went there as an intern in the summer and I was actually still finishing up school, right? So I went straight out of college. It was pretty much my first serious job. I would have had, other summer jobs and whatever. And so for 6 years, I have been, trained to follow the processes and the procedure of an organization. And when you make that transition into running your own business, you can get it can go one of either way. You can be stressed out all the time and you can just find yourself wasting time. Like you're just not doing anything. You're doing a whole lot of things, but you're not really being productive. So I found that I'm the kind of person who need to make lists. I found out that the hard way. So if people can find out the best work environment for themselves from early on, because as I said, you will be in a work environment for a very long time and you are delivering because you have to deliver, but that might not be the best work environment for you. So when I went off to the Rachel Lane, I had to kind of figure out how I see things and how I do things, right? So that was something that I never really envisioned. I was more focused on the actual business side of it. So some things that were, I mean, fairly tricky would be like getting the trademark. Getting the trademark is a decision that you need to make as an entity because when you start initially, you're not really sure where this is going to go. You don't know if you're going to stop after a year. But at the same time, there have been so many stories of people starting brands, reaching somewhere with the brand, and then someone else already has the trademark. And you find yourself at a point where you should be expanding and you're not looking to close down because you don't have your trademark. So I made a decision. I recognize that my logo it's a mark that people recognize easily whenever people see the logo. And that is why my products are branded boldly and intentionally because I want people to see the logo and to know that it's Rachel Lane before they even pick up the product, right? So getting the trademark, when I went in, they were very nice. They went through everything. I didn't really realize that you had like different categories to trademarking. So that was good that they kind of walked me through that and advised me, think about things that you might want to do in the future. So you might be doing soaps and candles now, but in the future, do you want to do apparel? Just get the trademark if you can. Then instead of trying to adjust the trademark over time, which will be very difficult. I don't even know if you can do it. Right. So there was that. The issue of registering, it wasn't that hard. It was just to decide to register as a sole trader or whatever. Looking back, I think I would have probably not registered as a partnership. It comes with a little bit of difficulty when it comes to like opening a bank account. Both of you will need to be there. Certain transactions or certain things that you need to apply for, both of you will need to be there initially. Another thing that um I didn't really think about was like testing the products. So right now, as far as I know, there is no regulation as to what goes on shelves in stores, right? So it's a hard decision that you have to make for the well-being of your customers as to what products you're going to get tested if you're going to get products tested, which is why when we got the sanitizers and I realized that people were selling any and everything as sanitizers, I decided to get our sanitizers tested. So a lot of it is the setup process can be a bit tricky. A lot of the information isn't always readily available online. So that has also been something that I've had to deal with to go from, agency to agency. Of course, whenever I come to you guys most times can say, okay, try this person at this entity, which is which has been a blessing because time is money, and when you're doing everything yourself you don't have a lot of time to be running up and down. So I think the major challenges, and from friends that I have who have small businesses, the major challenges that we have are like the system things, the things that you need to put into place. How are you going to do accounting? um how are you, like, what are you using to set up your systems on a day-to-day basis, and those sorts of things. So those are like the hardships. um Finding an audience overseas is a little bit tricky to, I mean, just the same that Made in Jamaica has kind of blown up in Jamaica now and we're trying to support local. I found that other countries are also trying to support local. So I've actually reached out to a few stores overseas and they're like, we love your products, but our policy is that we only carry American made products. So I think that is something to think about when you're looking to expand your reach worldwide.
That's interesting. So the things that I heard you said were mindset, shifting from an employee to an employed and self-employed business owning and managing person. And when you said the list, I was curious. Is it that you were accustomed to following the procedures of the organization that you're employed in, and so when you had to run your own business now, it's like there were no guideposts? Is that where the list came
Yeah,
in handy?
yeah, because when I used to work there, I would get objectives that I need to meet. I would know because I would manage projects as well as look over drawings that tenants are submitting and things of that nature. So I would know that this week I have three drawings to look over. I have this to do. I have that to do, and even though my supervisor would kind of just let me do because he know that I will produce the work at the end of the day, there was a structure. If I'm sending a memo, I know I need to send it through these people. If I'm doing this, I need to do that. And then I found myself just with no timetable, no schedule, and time. Like it just seemed like I had so much time when in reality I did not have any time at all. But at the time it just felt like, oh, I can just do whatever I feel to do today. Today I feel to make three candles, make them. Um, so when I say I'm the kind of person that has to work with lists, I have to plan out what I'm doing in the day. So whether I
Mm.
plan it from the day before or in the morning, I plan and say I'm going to do this. If I don't have a plan, it's a mess. It's a whole mess.
Did you start off with a business plan or anything formal like that, or you just started making the product and
So
what?
so so we started making the products because we were making products for probably like a year, right? As I said. Um, but in terms of the business plan really came about in the design fusion program because the design fusion program had different components. So there was the manufacturing component, then there was business, and then there was marketing. So in the marketing or the business, one of those two, we had to actually sit down and do your business plan or do like something similar to a business plan. Get out your target audience. So that I think it was 3 months, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
It
you're
was
right. It was a short
yeah,
process.
it was. And there were times when it felt overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
but it was crucial in me establishing things like target audience. Who do I want to target? What does that audience look like? What do they like? establishing things like there was a session I'll never forget that made me realize how much time I was wasting manufacturing one, like three candles today and then three candles on another day, because we had to actually write out what goes into making each product and the time that it takes to make each product. And then we had to come up with like a schedule of when we're going to be manufacturing versus when we're going to be doing other things. And when I wrote that out, no, I can't even believe that I was actually making like six candles a week for it just is not penciling out now. Now I'm doing batches of, let's say, like 24 at a time. Um so those 3 months, as I said, they were intense at times, but they gave me tools that otherwise I don't think I would have taken the time, because I mean, really and truly, you're going to sit down to write out a target audience. Really, if I had it my way, I probably would have used the time to do something else. But that is so crucial in your branding, how you speak to the people that you're targeting and understanding your brand. We had to do like an exercise of um your brand story and how you
Mhm.
came about, establishing the brand. And that alone, understanding how you are, where you are, and how you came to be at that point to start a brand is so important. And so, as I said, those 3 months really lay the foundation for what Rachel Lane is now.
Yes, I remember. I think you did an interview shortly after, or at the end of the design fusion program, and you were saying, "Boy, you were wasting time for a whole year," and
Yes,
because you were just operating, as you're saying, doing with activity, but without that structure, without that the guidance of a plan that says, "Okay, this is what I'm actually aiming and going to work." You can end up spending a whole lot of time. And in your own words, time is money. So it's time and money, and not really making any money,
right?
which is the whole objective of
Which is the
being in
point of this.
business.
You don't go off
Uh,
to work for yourself to not be
to
making
not
any
make
money.
money. Exactly. So, just stressing it again for early stage entrepreneurs are those who are yet to actually start. If you're in the process of preparing or you have just started, do not take for granted the process of actually thinking through and planning through how it is that you're actually going to make money, because you're getting in this to actually make money. So don't discount the value of taking time to do that. Another thing I picked up from what you said was about the trademarking of the Rachel Lane brand. And you did say that you knew as you were about to start this that you wanted to make this an international brand.
Yes.
And so it's so interesting that you actually aligned that vision for Rachel Lane to become an international brand with a strategy to leverage into, and I'm putting this in your mode. If it's not so you did intend it, this is actually what you did. And leveraging that the intellectual property, which is your brand, because if that is where the value really going to lie, it's not in the candle and the product and whatever, it's really in that brand story that you're attaching to the intellectual property of your brand and what that represents, that is going to um, catapult you into the international space and make the vision that you have for it to come through. So anybody else out there listening, you cannot underestimate the value of
Yes.
moving quickly, because you have a lot of businesses out there who should be doing this, meaning their asset, the capital that they could be building is in the brand that they have, but they haven't protected it. They haven't gone the step of doing that. So kudos to you again for actually taking that step to do
when
that.
we when we launched Rachel Lane, our first show was really the launch, and that was Jamaican Made Christmas, not December gone, the December before that, right? And we had all the products and everything, and people are coming up, and we will never forget, because my mother and I speak about this. Like, I think we spoke about this up to last year. Somebody came up to the booth, and she's like looking at the products, and then she says she's in love with the logo. She doesn't she's not really interested in buying anything, She just wants something with the logo on
Hmm.
it. And she was taking pictures of the products, and she was like, okay, she's just going to buy something because she just wants the logo. And when she said it, um, after everything ended and everything, my mother was like, I think we've been thinking about this. I think we should actually take the step to do the trademark. And when I left and I thought about it, she was so interested in just the mark alone that it kind of got me on edge because, as I said, I've read so
Hmm.
many stories of people registering their business and then somebody else trademarks it before you get to trademark it. And up to last week, I was listening to a podcast with a lady with a bakery. She's at the stage now where she's going to open an actual physical location, only to find out that another bakery that opened after her has the trademark for her name.
Hmm.
So it seems like something that, you can wait until you're big to do, but the longer you wait is the more you put yourself at risk.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
true. As well, I'm so glad you've made that point because especially now when I mean we already know that it's global. We live in a global world, but especially now with what we're seeing with the pandemic and everybody being virtually,
Online.
yeah, forced to get online, the exposure is just even greater in this time. So we cannot ignore that. Processes, you also mentioned processes that you got to, you from the design fusion program, you started the habit of writing out the processes for the work that you're doing. That's another critical thing that people often think, oh, when I get bigger, I can do this. You know, when I have a lot of staff and and I need to know give them the things to do and I need to assign jobs and so on to others. That's when I should probably spend time to develop processes and procedures. But the fact is, it's actually easier to do it. It's best to do it early when things are simple and less complicated.
Yeah, because
So.
if you're gonna wait until you've developed into, let's say, 50 products, and then each of those products have variants, right?
Mhm,
And you've made how much in sales to really put processes in place, the amount of backlog
mhm,
that you're then having to update. And the sooner you start, I think it's the easier it will be to train people when they come on, because you don't want to be at a point where you're now forced into taking on people because you're doing so much, but you don't even know what to tell these people to do. Like, there are no systems as to how they should operate. There is no guide. So when you start earlier, you can always build on it as you go along. When you wait, in my mind, this is how I process it. When you wait until you're this big company, you run the risk of having to spend so much time on developing these things as opposed to just changing them and modifying them to suit where you are at that point in time.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, I mean, you are spot on with it. And for right now, the team that you have, it's you and your mother, right? You are in partnership, business partnership with your mother.
Right.
How is that? Yeah, you mentioned also start a family business. How is that going? Because that can go really well, or it can go not so well. How has it been going for you?
Well, after talking to, a couple different people, I feel blessed because people are
Mm-hmm.
always asking me, how is it going? And when they ask, they're like tiptoeing, like they're afraid that they're gonna get a bad answer. But it's really and truly, I have to be honest, it has been going well. Um, of course, we are human beings, and I will have ideas that probably she's not on board with, or the other way around. But I think because we both have similar aims and goals for the brand, it's it's almost like we're on the same page. Um, and I think we have that respect for each other, as to where there's a level of respect and a level of trust. And it's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting coming from being a child. And when you're a child, no matter how old you get to your parents, you're still their child. So it's very interesting coming from a place where I am, or I used to rely on her for, all advice on everything, to a point now
Mm-hmm.
where we're sharing advice, and sometimes I'm the one giving her advice depending on what side of the business it is. And I also feel blessed because she is very knowledgeable in things like HR, business, that sort of thing. So yeah, so separate and apart from Rachel Lane, I will have friends who will be like, Joe, ask your mother this for me or whatever, because she's just so knowledgeable about so many different things. So there are things that I know for sure that I'll probably have to pay for, that she has the knowledge for. So when I say I feel blessed, it's not just because, oh, I like my mother. No, I'm working with someone who has a vision and is pushing as hard as I am pushing to get the brand where we think that the brand should be. So it's good. As I said last week, I did another interview. I am crossing my fingers that it continues to go that the way that it's going now.
Wow, it sounds like a blessing indeed. What advice do you have for other persons listening on who may be thinking, should I get into partnership with someone, whether it's a family member or a friend? What advice would you, from your experience being in partnership, what advice would you tell them to look out for? What are the
Well,
things they should look out for?
Well, the person, whoever you're considering, needs to have the same values as you.
Mhm.
If if you have one set of beliefs and the person has a completely different way of doing business, you might want to rethink if you really want to go down this path. It's also good to evaluate the traits that you're going to bring and the traits that they're going to bring, because sometimes opposites really do work well with each other. So if one person is more business minded and one is more creative, that can be very good for the business to kind of balance out things.
Compliment. Mhm.
Right. Um, so you need to look at the traits that you're going to bring, the traits that they're going to bring. You need to look at your values as well as the person's values, and you both need to know what it is that you want to get out of this.
Mhm.
People will say that they want to, invest or be a part of something because they can see something that probably you can't necessarily see, and they might just be out to gain without actually giving. So you don't want to partner with people who all they're interested in is receiving and taking from you, and they're not as invested in whatever venture you're doing as much as you are.
Excellent points. And just from the response you had given me about what it's like working with your own mother, the expertise, which is also a part of the complementarity that you're looking for, what strengths and weaknesses exist in you and the other person that would make it either a complement or maybe um, something that just doesn't work because maybe both of you have competence in the same area, then what value is the other person bringing? Or maybe the both of you have the same weaknesses, which is
Right?
also which could also be problematic. So that's a good thing, evaluating the traits, experience, and expertise that the person brings, and the weaknesses as well. And you mentioned trust. Trust is a big thing. You have to trust the person before, and you have to know, say you trust them before, not try it while you're in it. Don't it? You don't
And I
want to go
mean,
in it and then figure it out.
as I think I had said that we are registered as a partnership, right? So we had to do
Mm-hmm.
a partnership agreement and all of that. Don't be don't be afraid to bring up having a contract, right? You're running a business.
Mm-hmm.
This is no longer like mommy and me playtime or brother. You're running a business. So at any in any way that you can, try to protect whatever it is that you're establishing. As I said, we had to do a contract and all of that. We went through the contract together, make sure that both parties are on board. And
Mm-hmm.
at first it can seem a little bit weird, because this is something that is so formal between two people, or people who are supposed to be informal in how they relate to each other. But
Mm-hmm.
in the long run, we see too many times where family members start business things, they either grow apart or their views may grow apart, and then it's all hell breaks loose. So to avoid that, as much as you can, try to have things in writing. that both parties, or how many ever parties are involved, have agreed to.
And I'd imagine some consistent, open communication.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing on that point. What would you say is your own personal philosophy on business? I know it's still early days, but have you formed one? Or maybe it's of your own personal philosophy and life that you also lend to how you do business.
Yeah, I think being in business for the year and a half or whatever that it has, I feel like I have grown and changed so much in that short space of time that sometimes I find myself wishing I did this 3 years ago, but at the same time knowing that nothing before its time and I'm just following the path that I'm put on, right? So when it comes to business, I found myself trying to please people all the time. People would call me last minute with orders, and even though we have like an order policy, just because you probably don't want to lose a sale or you don't want to be seen as like a bad business, I found myself always trying to please people. And it led me to really think within myself. And I realized that I have kind of flipped almost, because when I was younger, people used to always tell my parents, oh, she's so opinionated for a little girl, this and that. And I think having worked in an organization, and not specifically the organization I was at, but being in a workplace, we tend to want to be politically correct all the time, or to kind of not step on people's toes. And so I've had to realize that for my business to not sink from me always rushing and not being able to plan, there are times when I will have to say no. And
Mm,
I've kind of carried that over to life as well. Um, there are just certain times opportunities will present itself. You need to think about it, feel your spirit. I'm a vibes person, so I go off of, of course you want to think about it with your mind, but you also need to trust your gut, which is something that is taking some time to get used to actually trusting my feelings. Most times your gut is telling you something for a reason. So in business and in life, I found that there are gonna be times when I have to say no. On the flip side of that, I am now stepping out and being less timid. I am at a point now where I am trying to fail fast and recover quickly, as opposed to trying to plan something for 6 months and then you put this thing out and nobody's even interested because
mm,
you took so long to do it. You didn't even get, to put it out and see if people are even interested. So I'm at the point in life now where personally and business wise, um, I'm a little bit more free. That has always been, I've always admired people who seem to be settled within themselves and free. And I think I'm working towards that. So trusting my gut is definitely something that, I'm getting a little bit more settled in, and just accepting. I think as a small business, sometimes, as you rightfully said, there are so many established businesses that you will start to compare yourself, not realizing that these people are 10 years in, 7 years in, and you are really, you're just like, you're like a baby. You're literally like a baby, and you have to crawl before you walk. So as I said, this year has really been an eye opener for me. I've learned how I process things and how I work best, what situations I need to work best in. I've also learned what I am good at and what I like doing. Um, so, it's just, and just to go with the process. I think, we're so caught up in trying to live life or trying to look like we're actually doing something, that we can get very distracted and we're not actually enjoying the process of what it is that we're doing. So it's strange that it took me starting a business to change my personal views so much. Um, but it really has impacted me in a good way.
wow, that is profound, and I'm happy for you because that is what is supposed to happen. it is a part of the process. That's why this on the program we talk about the entrepreneur's journey. It's really important for us to get behind, the profile that is presented as the business person and into the workings of the person, and
Yes.
and how the two interplay and impact on each other. There's you first, and then there's the business, and how what you do in the business then transforms or changes you. So I'm glad that it's going well for you. I'm glad that you're learning things about yourself that are helping to liberate and free up. Like I said, it's good stuff. Good stuff. And that learning to say no is a powerful thing, my girl.
It is.
Powerful. Yeah, man, it's a powerful, powerful thing to be able to know when something is not for you. Something is not good for you. So yeah. Um, what would you say is your biggest strength so far?
I would say I have an eye for composing things. So I have a good eye for design and what looks good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so when it comes to the branding and the imagery is always my favorite part. So coming up with content for social media, that sort of thing is always my favorite part. I love taking the pictures. I love composing the pictures. I take all the pictures now. Of course, in the future, I would love to work with actual photographers. But I think one of, as he asked, I think my biggest strength is having an eye for design, and having an eye for like what makes a brand as opposed to just a company. Um, Oftentimes, I don't think people realize that a brand is so much different from a company. Um, the brand is, how you make people feel. How do people describe what it is that you're selling without you even being like in the room? The brand embodies your beliefs. Do you believe in some things and you're not in alignment with some things? Um, how you speak to people. So having a good eye for design, as I said, when it comes to the labels and that sort of thing, I have a good eye for what will look good on that thing or whatever product it is. I am also very dedicated in a strange way. I I work well under pressure, and I've always worked well under pressure. So if I have a deadline to meet, if it means me just bleaching the night away, which I do not advise anybody to do regularly. Whatever I need to do to get a certain task done, I will get it done. I'm reliable. So if I say that I'm going to do something, and I think that has to do with the trust factor with my mother as well, she knows that if I'm supposed to do something, I will do it. She can rely on me. And a lot of people that I know that they can rely on me. And those are very big in business. December gone, I had a fairly big order for corporate gifts, and I could tell that, they were a little bit on edge because it's the first time they're working with me. I'm a small company compared to the other companies that they were working with. I was the smallest company, right? They were working with all established brands. And so I could feel them a little bit, hesitant, and I would like give them updates, or they would call me for updates or whatever. And I gave her a date, but I knew that I wanted to deliver it like 2 days before, because the date that I gave her was pretty close to when they were actually going to giving it out. And I was like, anything can go wrong, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So I had to put in the work, but I said I am not delivering these things late. Things happened, as I said, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So things kind of threw me off, but I always made sure to communicate with them. This is happening, this is happening. And like I had planned, like I had set out, she got her things before, and she was so excited and happy. And it just made me feel so good, because in that moment I knew that, I am now in her mind as an entity that she can rely on to deliver. Small businesses get a lot of bad rep sometimes. I mean, a lot of times it's one person running the business and
It's
things
not just
do
small
happen.
business.
Yeah.
Businesses on a
Um,
whole can get
so
comfortable.
so I always try to be very reliable, and I think that's one of my
That's
strengths
my
that
strength.
has
Yeah.
come over into business.
Awesome. So you're a full-time entrepreneur.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. And I take it there's no intention to go back into employment world.
No,
More businesses,
I
if anything.
more businesses, if anything, as well as I would love to have a space where, and I'm still trying to figure it out, but I would love to have a space where um fellow small business, and small as in um like micro, if you want to be, more correct with the term, but where small business owners can come to this space, whatever the space is going to be, and get the guidance that they need to actually run their business. Um, a lot of us, I believe, are not really running our businesses as if it were like a big entity, a big corporation. Even pricing was something that took a lot out of us, because in one hand you're a small business and you feel like, oh, you need to price at a certain price point to attract people. But in the real world, and we had to go through this in Design Fusion, if I'm supposed to hire somebody, I need to be able to pay that person. And you don't want to come into the market charging $300, and then in 2 months you have to charge $1,000, because you never take the time to think out your pricing. So I would love, separate and apart from establishing other things under Rachel Lane, because as I said, we're more going to a wellness and lifestyle brand, and we're interested in home decor and that sort of thing. That those things will come under Rachel Lane, but I'm very interested in the people behind the business, and how I can probably um give some insight. As you said, most times when people start to talk about the journey, they have already either been acquired, so they're talking about what led them to being acquired, or they're at the point where they're making millions in profit. And sometimes you can't relate to those people when you're 1 year in, just trying to break even. Like, you're at a point where your goal is not even to make these horrendous profits. Your goal is to really and truly cover all the expenses and to break even. So I've been thinking about it. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but that I think that a lot of people would benefit from it, and to have people who are experts in fields that we don't really hear a lot about a lot, who are running businesses, to have people have access to them, I think it would be really cool. So that's something that I have in my mind, and I'm gonna think on it and see how best I can do it.
Excellent. All right, so we just have about 5 minutes to go, and I'm going to throw out the opportunity to persons, whether in the Zoom or on Instagram, who may want to shoot you a question. If you want to ask JoAnn anything, now is the time to do it before we wrap up this entrepreneur's journey conversation. I'm seeing the confirmation that yes, you are reliable coming in from Quebec. What about your mentors? Do you have any mentors that are supporting you, whether they are people that you're in direct communication with or via other methods?
So I don't have any mentors that I am, like, in contact with, but
Mm,
I am on the hunt. I'm putting it out there that I'm going to get one. I think that it's very beneficial to be able to learn from someone's experience in a very compressed amount of time versus going through the same 10, 15 years. But
mm,
I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts of makers specifically. And I just finished reading Super Maker. I don't remember her name, but she's the owner of Smith's deodorant, or she was the owner. She sold the company. And that book really, if you're a maker, specifically, if you're making body products, I would recommend Supermaker to anyone. It shows you how she went from making deodorant in her kitchen to now selling her company for millions. And
Okay.
the hardships and the wins that she went through in the process.
Okay, thank you. Because and let us make a note, guys, that the mentorship doesn't have to come from somebody who we actually in contact. You notice I ask her whether she in contact with them or not. So books, podcasts, those kind of things are excellent ways to get into the minds of persons who you admire and who reflect the same similar who have done things that you aspire to do or get to places that you want to get to. So I'm seeing there are a lot of compliments coming in for your story about what you have shared so far from Insta and a little bit in Zoom as well. Enjoying the conversation and learning theories. There's one question. Do you see where there's a fusing of creative styles since you and your mom are from completely different generations and influences? Hmm.
Yes. So, um, it's
And
even
let me start with the
clearer.
answer.
It's even clearer now. That we're from two different generations. So there is absolutely a fusion of styles because I'm of one mindset and she's of another mindset, clearly. And even personal taste, there is a little bit of a difference. But I think the mutual ground is really what we draw from. And
Mm-hmm.
there are ways that she does things or um design taste that really lends to the brand. Um and then there are my way. So I think it is a blend of both coming together, and it's just a matter of editing. Editing is very important in anything that you're gonna do. Sometimes less is more. Most times less is more. So it's a fusion and then editing of both our styles and influences.
Okay, great answer. Um, Not seeing another one coming up at this time, and since we're pretty much on the button in terms of time, want to take the opportunity, JoAnn, to say thank you once again for coming on to the entrepreneur's journey today and sharing your evolving and burgeoning entrepreneurial story with us. It has been very edifying. I mean, you shared quite a bit of principles and what I would say advice that others who are just getting started or just at the early stage in their journey as well can utilize. And we also want to wish you the best in your endeavors as you go on to fulfill and realize the visions for making Rachel Lane an international brand. I look forward to seeing it out there. And I mean, it's good to see it in the stores here. I mean, I go in there and I took a whiff of the candles. Oh my God, the fragrances are so strong and
Cute.
beautiful, and the packaging is also, I don't know, I would be conflicted to buy it and use it. I would want to burn it, but then again, it looks so nice. I don't know if I would want to burn it. But the point is, I see that you have a quality product and you're building a strong brand, and I congratulate you on it and
Thank
wish you
you.
all the best with it. And I'm seeing here somebody saying, do you have contact information so you can go in further about the space for micro businesses? Okay, so somebody may want to, you may actually start having people who you can mentor. There's people asking for your information. You're on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah,
You
they
can,
can just message the Rachel Lane page on Instagram at Rachel
mhm.
Lane JA, and I'll get back to them.
Awesome, great.
Thank
So, and I say thank you. That's Alexandra Brown saying thanks. She's the one who asked. Yes, so thank you again, and we wish you a wonderful 2021 and beyond. Have a good Friday afternoon and a good weekend. And to everyone who stayed with us this Friday during lunchtime, I hope it is that you got not just your belly full, but you got your mind fed as well. And if not, go get some food now and contemplate a little further on this entrepreneur's journey as you ponder yours. If you haven't started it yet, then get it going, guys. Thanks for being with us. And
Thanks.
see you next week again. Same place, same time here. Instagram, Zoom, 12 noon for the next entrepreneur's journey. Have a good afternoon, everyone.